All right. Good Monday afternoon, everyone. Thanks for stopping by for a check of your forecast. Hope everyone's doing well today. It is Monday, June 30th, year of our Lord 2025, last day of June, and we move into July, and then we'll be closer to the year 2050 than we were 2000. So that's one way to think about it. So certainly has seemed like the year's gone by very quickly. We've got a few showers decaying over in the southeast panhandle, a decaying thunderstorm down there in Donnelly County. Those have been really stationary, so there's probably a very narrow corridor where we've picked up a half inch to an inch and a half of rain there in the southeast corner of the county. Areas north of Kittiquay, Silverton, and Turkey also seeing some really sporadic rain showers, maybe some very isolated pockets of some moderate to heavy rain. We're expecting the rain to stay mostly south of the viewing area tonight. The cold front is currently stalled out kind of in this generalized area right here, but it is still slowly moving south. It's not moving much, but it is something that we think storms are going to try and focus on and fire up there later this evening, and then we'll probably see this continue to push further south once we get some additional initiation going. That's going to help put down some outflow boundaries, and the cold front and the outflows should surge a little bit further south. And so storm coverage we think is actually going to improve tonight as you get down here in the southern plains, areas like Childress and Lubbock, Levelland, Plainview, all the way out towards Portales there in Roosevelt County. These are probably the areas that are going to benefit the most from some moderate to heavy rain. Now, we will eventually start leaning towards a flood concern as we move into tonight. Some of these storms could produce some rain rates as high as 1 to 2 inches per hour. Places, yesterday picked up an inch to 2 inches of rain out there in New Mexico, Clovis, Portales getting hit pretty hard with some rainfall last night. Indy, all of those areas out there had some beneficial moisture, but again, the ground is saturated. So if you see another 2 to 3 inches of rain tonight, a lot of that's going to start running off. It won't soak into the ground, especially some of the rain rates that we'll see later this evening. So flooding will eventually become our biggest concern, though we can't rule out a severe storm capable of maybe some quarter-sized hail and winds to around 60 miles an hour. There's been a really thick deck of high cirrus clouds over Amarillo today. That's why we're still 74 degrees outside right now. Been very comfortable this afternoon. It's not often we get to hang out in the 70s in the middle of the summer. So hopefully everyone's enjoying that cooler day. We've got a few days of cooler weather with the cold front to our south and probably some lingering cloud cover and some storm chances in the forecast. Winds pretty calm behind the front. They are out of the north around 5 and east, anywhere from 5 to 15 miles per hour. Dew points are pretty high, but the lifting mechanisms where storms are probably going to initiate off of are already to our south. And so there's not much lift in the atmosphere here over the panhandles anymore. So I don't think we're going to have much storm activity if you are already on the north side of the cold front, which would place most of us in that category. So it's going to be a cool, cloudy day, maybe some rogue, isolated showers and thunderstorms, but not really expecting anything widespread for tonight. You can see that marginal risk for a severe storm, mainly down in the southeast panhandle, where they're in the warm sector. Haven't seen that cold front push all the way through the area just yet. So that's kind of where we have that threat for maybe some rogue severe hail up to the size of quarters and some winds gusting to 60 miles per hour. Lows for tonight will tumble to 63 degrees here in Amarillo, 62 in Tucumcari. Highs tomorrow with the clouds early on and maybe taking a little bit longer to see the sun break out behind them. We'll probably have another cool afternoon in the high 70s to the low 80s, just pending how much sunshine we get. And that really will just depend on where you're located. You don't have to go very far either. If you get enough sunshine, you'll get to the 80s. If you don't see much sunshine, you're going to stay in the 70s. So we've got you at 78 right now for Amarillo at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Some chances for some thunderstorms in the afternoon hours as we get a little bit more return flow. That front should retreat a little bit, but it may still be pretty far to the south. So I wouldn't bet the farm on seeing rain the next day or so here in the Amarillo area, but places further south have a much better chance to see probably some hefty amounts of rain. Tulia, Dimmitt, Silverton, areas just south of there towards Levelland and Lubbock, all going to see some beneficial rainfall where they've generally stayed dry the last week or two. Lubbock probably would be okay getting a little bit of some rain tonight and tomorrow. But those are your highs for tomorrow. Here's your outlook for tomorrow. Just a general thunderstorm risk, really not expecting anything in the way of severe storms, but some localized flooding could be a concern on Tuesday should we get any storms to develop in the afternoon. So let's put the model into motion. I think it's not doing a very good job of initializing these storms. They should stay focused along the cold front. We may get some isolated stuff up here further north, but it should be very, very isolated. We don't expect it to be very scattered. So all the storm activity should mostly stay south of I-40 for tonight. As we move into Tuesday, low clouds will slow down the warming process during the daytime. A lot of us are only going to get into the 70s for those high temperatures, but we do see that again, that southeast winds start to return and push the moisture back up into the area, maybe getting some better lift. If we have some residual outflow boundaries around the region, some storms may try and fire along some of that stuff. But we should see some more scattered storms in the afternoon, probably favoring the southern half of the Panhandle. And then Wednesday, cold front should wash out entirely. We all start seeing more of that southerly flow. Temperatures will start to warm a bit. We'll get back into the 80s and high 70s, and then we'll see some isolated storms in the afternoon. Very tropical-like, heavy downpours being the main theme with some of those as they move through the area. So here's the overall pattern for the next several days. This is Thursday, July 3rd, the day before the 4th of July. We've got a trough that's expected to move into the Four Corners region. It is going to open up and weaken as it gets closer, but it will provide us with some shortwave disturbances. These are your isobars here, just a line of constant pressure going around some of these geopotential heights. And again, you can see there's this dip right here over at eastern New Mexico, another dip here. You get a couple of these squiggles that get a little bit more erratic. Those are what we call short waves embedded in this main trough. So when these come passing over our heads, if they come through during the peak of daytime heating, that can kickstart storms in the afternoon, at least on an isolated to scattered level. And so while we don't have a lot of synoptic lift for widespread showers and storms later this week, we probably will still hang on to that chance for some isolated storms in the afternoon and evening hours most days as we get into the 4th of July weekend. That ridge of high pressure centered over Houston will continue to funnel some moisture through northern Mexico and up into West Texas. So we'll have the moisture present. We may lack a lifting mechanism, but still thinking if we can get hot enough in the afternoons, some isolated storms, maybe some residual outflow boundaries could be enough to get a storm or two going. And if we can get one or two storms going, usually if they put down a pretty strong outflow boundary, especially when they collide yesterday, very good example of that over there towards Hartley. When those two boundaries collided, we had that big linear line of convection go up late in the evening last night there around 8-9 p.m. Something like that can't be ruled out in the afternoon for the rest of the week, but it should be pretty localized. I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of wind shear, and so severe weather should be very limited. Here's the outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. This is their long-term outlook for the next 6 to 10 days. They expect, again, probably the monsoon season to continue to set into Arizona. They also have a 40% probability to be above normal in the Central Plains. I still think we've got a shot to be above average, but with the lack of synoptic lift, it's going to be a lot of very isolated stuff that we will see probably through that first couple of weeks of July. We may get one day here or there where we get some better short waves to come through. That could be enough to get a good complex of storms going one afternoon, but it should be few and far between in terms of widespread storm coverage. Temperature outlook should be a little bit warmer than normal getting into the second full week of July. One thing that we are keeping an eye on in the long range is what the second half of July may bring in terms of precipitation and temperatures. A lot of our ensembles are starting to trend towards drier conditions in that second half of next month. Now, if that were to come to fruition, we're probably going to see a ridge build in a little bit closer to home. We're going to more than likely start seeing some hotter temperatures with that as well. Have not made it to the triple digits yet here in Amarillo. More often than not we do, but we are already behind the average first triple digit day we see in the summertime. Our normal first triple digit day is usually about June 20th, and we're 10 days past that. And looks like we're not going to get there for the next 7 to 10 days, but moving into the second half of July, that conversation may come back up whether or not we can get into triple digit heat or not. We've got a lot of moisture in the ground right now that can help hold back those temperatures, especially when the humidity stays high. So that is another thing to factor in to the forecast, which we'll certainly be thinking about, but does look like we might dry out, and it doesn't take very long for that soil moisture to get deep enough in the ground and for that desert southwest air to get pushed back into the panhandles. So something to watch, but not a high concern, but it's just something that I've kind of noticed on the ensembles in the long range. Again, chance of rain, we won't rule it out each afternoon. It's just going to be pretty isolated, so a lot of us should stay dry most days, but we do expect some storms in the area each afternoon. It's just going to be pretty spotty where they happen. So don't bet on rain, but there will be a few storms in the area most afternoons. That is all we've got for you today. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll see if we can get some hefty rain in our southern counties here in the Texas Panhandle later tonight and tomorrow morning.